if the inflation rate is between 6 and 7%, and then your annual increase is 5% on average, however, job hopping takes you to anything between 15 to 30%. Why exactly is job hopping wrong? Who does job hopping being wrong serve? Dumela Mzansi, welcome to yet another episode of Career Biz Mzansi, a platform where we talk everything careers, entrepreneurship, and overall self-development. I'm your host, Rewotile, an engineer curious enough in turning corporate experiences into conversations about career growth and business leadership. Today we're talking job hopping, as you heard. So, why exactly is job hopping frowned upon? Firstly, let's start by defining what job hopping is. Job hopping is when a person changes jobs frequently, anything really between below a year to 3 years, they define that as job hopping. Is it wrong? Personally, I think it depends. I don't think it's wrong. I think it should be strategic. It has its pros and cons, but it's not wrong. Because on the positive side, if you think about it, it shows adaptability because it means you move from one environment to the other and you're able to adapt, you're able to work with new people, you're able to still perform, especially if you're still able to perform. How is that wrong, really? If anything, it shows your capabilities in terms of you could be thrown into the deep end and you'll come out swimming. However, corporate South Africa, especially today, and most corporates generally, they view job hopping as wrong. Why exactly? This is because you come across as someone who is not so dependable. We could come to work tomorrow and find you resigning. You come across as not so trustworthy. But my question is, if you are treating people, or rather if you are treating employees in ways that should retain them, you wouldn't be worried whether tomorrow they come back to work or not because you would have done your best in retaining them. So if every day you wake up and wonder who is not going to come back to work tomorrow, maybe it is time, it is time you just look around as an employer. So obviously, equally, if I was an employer, I would see you as a risk if you were job hopping. But another side to it for me is it shows your capabilities. So this episode, I just want to look at the pros and the cons of both job hopping and staying longer. Because equally, it feels like the longer you stay in one job, you actually get taxed for it, loyalty tax of some sort. Because why else is your growth so slow and near impossible when you stay within one company? Let's engage. Before I continue, please comment down below and tell me if you've been job hopping, how your experience has been, how has that affected you? Has it increased your salary dramatically? Has it impacted your job hunting? Maybe they're no longer looking for you, recruiters don't take you, or anyhow, let's just discuss down below. Of course, don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. We talk everything careers, salaries, career development, entrepreneurship, overall development of a person. Going back to the issue of job hopping, let's start with the math. When people switch jobs, it is said that they get anything between 15 to 30%, depending on skills, negotiating, the company, and the reasons why they are leaving. Of course, if you're desperate to leave, maybe your current workplace doesn't serve you, it's toxic, it's this and that, you don't have leverage to be negotiating, you are desperate to move. But typically for people who are moving because they were headhunted or they looked for the job and they were not desperate to move, they can get anything between 15 to 30%. I've heard of someone who got 42%, So, when you have negotiating leverage, like being experienced, having, like when AI came on, for an example, people with AI who entered that market very early, they were in demand. So you can imagine the leverage they had when they had to negotiate because equally they are wanted. So in South Africa, with the high unemployment rate, we tend to not have that much of a leverage unless you have very specialized skill, very specialized experience, or you are God's favorite. So what's the math exactly? So switching jobs gives you anything between 15 to 30%. Inflation rate in South Africa is anything between 6 and 7%. Let's talk about your increase there by your company, there by your employer, your very good employer that you've been loyal to. It is anything but 5%. Let's say you are lucky during that year, you get a 9, a 10%, but how many are they who can confidently say, year to year, I know a 10% is mine? I wouldn't. I wouldn't confidently raise my hand to say that. But if you would, please comment down below. Maybe mention a sector to say, in this sector, listen, we're cruising nicely, 10% standard. But personally, I don't have such experience. So if inflation rate is between 6 and 7%, let's just be kind and say it's 6%. Let's take the minimum, and then when your increase is 5%, this means you are 1% poorer. You are not growing. You are 1% poorer. You are 1% going down the drain. In that year, when you get another 5% and inflation is now at 7, you are now 2%. 2% plus last year's 1%, it's now 3%. You are on your way into poverty. Your loyalty is not doing anything for you. You are being taxed for being loyal. Look for a new job. Blind loyalty is very, very costly. That job of yours that you are being loyal to, but it only gives you 5% increase year to year, is going to drag you into poverty, is going to drag you into debt. Because how are you going to settle? At some point, you are not going to afford anything because the rate of inflation is increasing at a rate that is already higher than the rate at which your salary is increasing. So why exactly has job hopping become a trend, for lack of a better word? This is because structures nowadays, especially in corporate, structures are flat. Between you and the person on top of you, it's now a CEO. But you don't even have the experience to become the next CEO in the next 5 years. So this means you need to spend the next 10 years in that position, going nowhere, not growing, because they have weird structures, flat structures, some are hybrid. You belong to 5 departments, same type, because we need 5 people, but no, we're not going to pay for 5 people. Come and do the job for 5 people. So where does that exactly take you? This is why people are job hopping. People are getting tired of doing the job for 5 people while they are one. They have weird hybrid structures whereby you are reporting to 5 people. You have 5 managers now. You belong to 5 departments. They are not very sure where you belong. You belong to that one, next week you belong to that one, but no, you must also report to head office. No, you must also report to region. No, you must also report to the branch. So people are getting tired of that. People are looking for creative ways of growth, career growth, because structures are too flat. Some are just weirdly hybrid. They're taking you nowhere. So here's another thing. There's also capped raises. I don't know if it's the managers who are saying, no, I am not going to give these people money, or the budgets are being cut from the top. I don't know. But there's a tendency of capping increases. That's why I'm saying you'll be very lucky if in your industry, in your company, your employer still gives you an annual increase that is anything but a single digit. If you get anything from 10 and above, if it's 2 digits, you are very lucky. Not many companies today, especially in South African corporate, can stand tall and say, we give our employees an increase that is 2 digits. There are very few and far in between. And chances are, if they're giving you the 2 digits, go and benchmark yourself among your peers. There might be a secret that you're not aware of, that you were already tailgating, you were already at the back. So they are just trying to not make you shame, sell. They're trying to make you not leave you behind too much. Also to not make it too easy for the next person to poach you. So that's why we now have an issue of job hopping. Another one, it is very slow promotions. Very slow promotions. Promotions are now political. If you don't belong to that cohort, if you don't belong to that group, to that clique, to that whatever, you don't get promotion. If you don't speak like this, you don't get promotion. If you don't do this, it is less about the skill and even more about the politics. How are you branded? Oh, that one is aggressive. That one speaks a lot. That one complains a lot. That one raises issues. And all of those things, they now inform promotions. So now it's no longer about who is the best. You could be the best and still be the worst in terms of the brand they're looking for that is going to represent them at the exact level. So what does that leave you? Job hop. The thing with job hopping is at the other company, they don't know you well. They don't know that you complain. They don't know that you raise issues. So leave and go there. They'll take you seriously. Another thing is when you're job hopping, or the reason why people are job hopping, it's because external recruiters, they have a budget they're working on. So even though some of them, they will rob you, but most times they have a budget. It could be that the budget is from a minimum to a maximum, but they're offering you the minimum. More often, you'll find that minimum, they are robbing you, yes, giving you a minimum. However, that minimum, you're not getting it. And this is why people are job hopping. Because external recruiters, at least they're giving a market-related figure. The internal one, they do not care where you are, what you've been doing, how great you are. It's the loyalty tax. I call it a loyalty tax. You could be pulling the greatest things. You could be doing the greatest things, bringing in the best clients, doing your best, but your perceived value is whatever you came in with plus 5% year to year. But will that pay your bills down the line? How long will you be able to keep up? You don't know. But apparently, job hopping is bad. If it is bad, who is it bad for? The employee or the employer? So companies are actively co-creators of this system where employees are job hopping. If companies didn't introduce weird hybrid structures where you report to 5 departments while you are one person, flat structures where your career growth is not so clear, you don't know where your path is going, the annual caps, the budget caps when it comes to our increases, if companies didn't create all of that ecosystem, we wouldn't be having an issue of job hopping today. So in as much as candidates are moving from company to company and creating this movement of job hopping, companies are also enablers of such behavior because they created the system that has enabled such behavior to manifest itself. Because if you do not job hop, your chances of actually growing, even in terms of responsibilities, not just financially, just responsibilities, you are going to be a baby forever in that one company. Even responsibilities, you will be that one person who always needs approval from 10 people for the rest of your life if you stay in one company. You will be very shocked how seriously you will be taken when you get to a new company. They respect your opinion. They see you for all the accolades, all your experience and the skills that you've got. But the company that has risen you from intern, from junior level, it might never be able to actually recognize the grown you or even appreciate the grown you, the skilled you, the now professional you. It is for that reason that it is always important to not be too comfortable. You must stay looking. If wherever you are working, you've stayed there for more than 4 years, my friend, you've overstayed your welcome. They will not tell you this, but you've overstayed your welcome. Go look for greener pastures. Yes, it is not always greener out there, but if it's not greener when you get there, you must move again and go look for greener. If the next place is still not greener, go look for another green one. Eventually, you'll find one. Because where you are, it's orange. It will never be green. So here is how the job hopping is negative, and maybe you might stop and not contribute to it. If a company reviews your role from time to time in your KPIs, genuinely so engages what you're doing, engages with your work, and value, put it to a test to say, this is how much we value it, that is a company you shouldn't job hop from. If the company has good benefits, that is a company you should consider staying at. If the company gives you work that is challenging, that is fulfilling, you on Sunday in the evening, you are not dreading going to work on Monday, that is a company you should consider being loyal to. If the company allows you to spread your wings in terms of development, like it pays for your fees to go and study, that short course, that degree, further studies, do this, do that, if it allows your growth and it is nurturing to your talents and your skills, that is your company you shouldn't be job hopping from. If that company has a two-way communication where you communicate your expectations to say, hi guys, I would like to achieve 1, 2, 3, kindly allow me and assist me in this way, provide support, and they talk to you, they say, okay, we can do this, but we can't do this. There's that channel for communication. That is a company you shouldn't be job hopping from. But if that company, you never even know when you're going to get your annual increase, you just see it there by the pay slip. Sometimes you're not even sure how much is it. You have to do the calculations yourself. That is a company you should be running away from fast. Don't even look back. I understand with the higher unemployment rate, there's now a fear of leaving. But if you are leaving a job for another job, I think it's relatively safe. Of course, there's pros and cons, but generally that should be safe. Don't leave your job if you're not going to work anyway. That one I wouldn't advise. So even though I am pro job hopping, I'm also a believer in taking calculated risks. So you must job hop in a very calculative manner. Don't do it far too often, far too close to each other in a way that recruiters don't even want to look at your CV. Be calculative with it so that at least it benefits you somehow. It is always important to re-evaluate wherever you are. If your current job doesn't give you a new skill from time to time or nurture a certain skill that you can be able to use and transfer it elsewhere, and it also doesn't financially reward you, it is probably time you look for a new job. In such an instance, you are not job hopping. You are taking responsibility of your career growth. If in one company, you are in one company whereby they do nurture you, the job is great, you are learning, you are improving, you're growing. However, financially it's not, at least you have something for it. You must get one. If you can get both, great. But if you can get one, it's also okay. You can stay a bit there. If you're getting zero, that is justification for job hopping. Why are you staying there where you're not getting financially rewarded and you're not growing professionally? Leave. Moving over to the plug of the week. Since I said you must leave that job of yours, I would like to plug you on how to navigate job hopping or being perceived as a job hopper. Let's say you've left a job 6 months in, you didn't work, you worked 6 months, the other 6 months you left. Think about it this way. You worked from Jan to June 2026, and then you left from June to December 2026. So that 6 months job that you did and you left, if you skipped it, technically you wouldn't be lying. If on your CV you say in 2026 you worked at the company that you would be working from June going forward, you wouldn't be lying, because indeed from 2026 June you worked there, but you just omit the month that you started in. It's not lying. You're just selectively mentioning your truth. That is how you can navigate the job hopping stereotype. If that is a big if, in a case whereby you really were unable to stay for whatever reason, that is one way of tackling it. The second way of dealing with or related to job hopping, before you leave, check what's your job, how much people are getting paid. Ask among your peers. For one, I am for salary transparency. So I know typically how much my friends earn, what to aim for, and things like that, which companies pay better in my sector or in my profession, and things like that. So it's always important to do your research before taking your next job. It could be it's an increase from where you are, but it's still not so much competitive compared to industry pay, which means you will have to leave once you get to that new place again. So rather you negotiate properly from the start, get the salary you want or need or you are actually worth. That way you're gonna be able to stay longer wherever you're going. Another way of benchmarking yourself against industry salaries is using platforms like Glassdoor and Pnet. Pnet sometimes has posts that mention salaries. Even if you're not going to apply for that post, just go and look. Titles or roles in my sector or in my profession, what do they typically earn? Take the number of years, match it to the degree or the educational requirements, match it to the salary, create a table there and compare yourself. How are you earning? Are you below? Are you within? Are you above? It would be great if you're above, better if you are within, worse if you are below. If you are below, job hop as soon as tomorrow. They call it job hopping. They frown upon it. Personally, I call it salary growth. Thanks for watching today's episode. This is Career Biz Mzansi. How did you find this episode? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and just engage with our content. It will help the channel grow. We need more members to actually join us so that we keep making this informative content. Please comment down below what you think of today's episode, what you think of job hopping. What are your thoughts? What does the math say to you? Do you think it's fair that the inflation is growing at a rate that is higher than your annual increase? Are you fine with that, really? You will be fine until when? Also tell me, what are the instances that you think they should justify job hopping if you are an employer, whereby you're going to look at a CV and be like, okay, it makes sense why this poor candidate was job hopping, and I understand. If you were an employer, of course. Just give me a different perspective. Cheers.